Buy, sell or rent your property with Century 21 and you could win a brand new 2-bedroom apartment on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. Visit c21prize.co.nz for your chance to win.
Welcome back to the show. Well, joining me tonight on the show is Stuart Ward, Director of Bell Partners Accountants, and we've just been joined by Charles Tarbey, Chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia. Well, it's just 3 weeks to go until the end of the year when so many people set some New Year's resolutions. So how important is it to review where you're at financially and to make some plans for the future? Charles, goal setting.
You're going to start with me on that. I should give me your wife's number. I'll ring her up and find out what yours are, because you're probably not going to plan any, are you?
No, we plan all the time.
I think that New Year's resolutions are fantastic, but I heard something a long time ago when I was running around the block up in the Blue Mountains, and I wanted to do 10Ks and I only ever did 5. And this guy on this cassette, this how long ago it was a cassette tape, he said, character is the ability to carry out a good resolution long after the mood in which it was made has left you. And I never forgot that. And a number of times we make a New Year's resolution where we're having a few drinks or we're making it in a certain mood, but when reality kicks in, a lot of people forget those resolutions. And I think the most important thing is, if you do make a resolution, that you set some plans in place to make it happen and you follow it through, because it's a serious lack of character when you say it and you don't do it. Is that a reasonable answer?
It is, but part of it is saying it out loud. Is if you go and tell everyone and you put it on Facebook and everything else, and I'm going to go and achieve something, it then gives commitment, doesn't it?
Well, it bags you out.
You'd hope so.
They bag you out. Yeah, everybody bags you out. And I think if you want to be that silly, go right ahead. You know, all your friends will bag you out all the time.
Stuart, planning.
I'm not sure Facebook's where I'd put my planning, but I mean, I think, sharing it with the right people is definitely the way to do it. I mean, people are going to hold you accountable. People are going to hold you. Help you as well, and also obviously your family. I mean, they're the most important people to set those goals with them, because they're going to take the ride with you. So, I mean, and advertising is, on Facebook and things like that, they're going to get people that might try and mock you or say things that just don't need to be said. So having people that are going to encourage you, positive energy, and also be able to put the right instruments in your day, they're going to make those goals and all the things that you want to do come to reality.
Yeah, I'm not a real big believer in goals, Chris, to be very frank with you. I might have been joking.
Even though you're a sportsman.
Well, a sportsman, yeah, right. I am a pretty good golfer at the moment. I won't go into that right now. But my thing is really serious. I've seen a lot of people set goals, and I've seen a lot of people fail, because they set these major goals and they're big goals, and they look down the path, and a month later, 2 or 3, they're not getting anywhere. They start to see themselves as failures. I'm more into short-term objectives. Short-term objectives with a long-term dream in mind. Because short-term objectives, each time you take a step, it gives you more energy to go to the next. And when you look back after a short period of time, you think, my God, I've already started building something. And it encourages you to go to the next level. I think goal setting...
Set some objectives rather than goals.
Short-term objectives. Short-term achievable objectives. And I think you'll find your year will be much better in most everything, including property.
Fine by me, Charles.
You want to shut me
Fine
up?
By me.
Yeah, good on you.
You obviously see a lot of clients go through this kind of stuff. What do the successful ones do that the unsuccessful ones don't, or the less successful ones?
Be honest with yourself, and look back at the year and say, right, well, these are things that could have gone on and did go on, and these are the reasons why. So what is it? Honesty and looking yourself in the mirror and being, not just critical, but look, pat yourself in the back as well of what you've done right. So those kind of things are the ones that basically do have good, successful goal setting or objective setting going into the future. The ones that kind of sit there and say, oh, everything's been great, and when it hasn't been great, they're the ones that are going to do the same thing and get the same outcome next year.
Now, Charles, obviously we can't be experts at everything. What stuff should you do yourself, and what stuff do you think you should outsource? Oh,
look, you should always have a line of people that are specialists in all areas, because if you try to do, which I try to do my accounting side or my legal side or my conveyancing side, it's just crazy. Do what you do best.
So even as someone as skilled as you can't do everything?
Look, my modesty prevents me from telling you how skilled I really am, Chris, but the reality is there are some things you just shouldn't do. And I think that focus on what you know best and stay that way. And when you talk about being honest with yourself and so on, Stuart, some of the things that are really critical about objective or goal setting is you've got to set something that you want not what other people tell you can't do. Now, my partner Amy's going to get upset with me when I say that, because I had a crack at her. Long in the early days, she had a poster up on the wall that said the greatest thing about success or something like this is being able to do things that other people tell you can't do. And I think goal setting or objectives is very personal, and it's not about what other people think or what other people say. It's what you want to do.
Sounds good. Now, difficult one on this one. Quite often we get clients that one's super conservative and one's super gung-ho. How do you try and manage that in a relationship when you're trying to create wealth?
Well, who wears the pants? No, I didn't mean to say that. But no, it's about getting a balance. I mean, finding out what the other one's going to be happy with to basically say, right, we're actually going to commit a goal together to do that, and basically approach it together. So, like, you don't want to disregard and those kind of things, because that's not going to lead to anybody achieving any goals. So, I would have said, you're both going to be very honest with each other. You basically try and come some kind of balanced view. You might do a bit of both within reason, and a bit of compromise, the big key word. But those kind of things are really important, and just listening to each other is really important.
He could be in trouble when he gets home tonight. I really do think that objectives are personal, and then there are team objectives or relationship objectives. And I think if you don't have objectives as an individual and you're living through somebody else's objectives, I just don't think that's appropriate. I really do think people need to make sure they support each other's objectives.
And look, Charles probably has got twice as much experience as both of us put together, hasn't he? Anyway, let's jump on to auction clearance rates, Charles.
Oh, should we? Well, look, they've been pretty good, all year round. This time last year, the interesting thing is that the stats will tell you for the last few months that the clearance rates were much, much lower in last year than they have been. When everybody said the market has finished, it's slow, the bubble's going to burst. 59.2% this time last year. But if you remember, Steve was saying last week, the auctions just gone this weekend were twice as much as normal. Well, the clearance rate was 74.6%. So go figure. When everything's supposed to die, there it is, it's still there. Sydney wasn't the best performer. It came in at 77.4%, but Melbourne was the best performer at 80.2%. Still good markets around the place.
Is there any homes being advertised for sale 2 weeks before Christmas?
Yeah, it's dropping, and again, the websites are probably upset about that, and so too are the industry, and so too is the pressure from buyers. So our stock levels dropped 1.71% over this time last week, and that's been quite a few weeks in a row, and that's right across the Australasian region.
And moving on to rent price movements.
Yeah, I pushed an extra chart in, which we'll see in a second, but the rent price movements, your best performing capital city was Darwin at 1.85, because it's had a pretty heavy drop too, and Melbourne came in at the second at 1.23, but overall for the week it was 1.89% up, or 3.61% up for the year to date. But the chart I wanted to bring in, I mentioned to you last week, is the next one. It shows you the figures now. Perth, since we started doing these numbers in the last 20 odd months, down 19.94% in rent values, while the Sydney market's up 7.51%. But you're not going to believe this. The best performing market out of all of them is Tasmania, 10.48% increase in rents over that same period of time.
And this is why people have got to read into the averages, because quite often you're getting one number in the paper, but it's when something's massively negative and positive.
Yeah.
So you've got to check out the detail.
It's really quite interesting. And when I look at the negatives, Chris, sometimes they tell you where the positives are.
Exactly. And finally, the vacancy rates.
Yeah, pretty tidy. Sydney 1.81 actually, and Melbourne 3.32, and Perth still up there, 10.4. It's an average of 5.18% for those three capital cities in vacancy rates. We need to see a change in Perth, but again, you just look at the negative in the rents, and you look at the negative in their vacancy rates, you look at the negative in sales in terms of mortgages and being worth more than the property. So there are some significant changes in that marketplace, but again, to me, that's a really attractive place to start looking.
Sounds good, Charles. Quick thought from you on 2017. Good year for the property market, do you think?
It's going to open up. It's going to open strong again. It's going to open up where it's finished, I suppose. There's still a lot of people looking out there. There's still people wanting to get into the market and take advantage of what they can. So I think it's going to be another strong year, and I think it's going to be another year that we've got to keep an eye on things like interest rates, keep an eye on things like Donald Trump, and those kind of things. But just keep your. I mean, it's going to the start of the year is going to tell a few stories.
keep an eye on your goals and your personal life, your wife when you get home.
Objectives rather than
When
goals,
you get, no,
Charles?
for him it's gold. When he gets home.
So, what are your thoughts on 2017?
I think Stuart's right. We've just got a lot of backlog. Chris, a lot of agents out there still screaming for stock, and they've got a lot of buyers waiting in the pipeline. Less interest rates change heavily.
Charles Tarbey from Century 21, Stuart Ward from Bell Partners. Thanks for joining us as well this evening. We're going to be taking a short break, but we'll be back in about the second week of January. So I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, do some goals and objectives, and we'll see you in 2017.
The information featured in this program is general in nature and therefore should not be relied upon. Guests appearing on the program may have commercial arrangements with some of the companies mentioned. Before making any investment, insurance or financial planning decisions, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you.